Good morning, Year 9. This is your third lesson on Act 2 of An Inspector Calls. Your Do Now task is on the screen. So how was Mrs. Burling involved in the death of Eva? Does she take any responsibility for that? And which dramatic device is used at the end of Act 2? Please pause this video and answer those questions now. Okay, great, let's see how you did. So Mrs. Burling was involved in Eva's death because Eva went to the charity that Mrs. Burling worked with and asked for help, and like financial help and things like that they would have provided in theory to other girls, but Mrs. Burling said no. The reason she said no is because Eva used the name Mrs. Burling herself, and the real Mrs. Burling thought that was just being rude and done deliberately to annoy her, whereas actually Eva used that name because Burling is the name of the father of the baby, which is Eric. Does she take responsibility? Not one bit. She keeps saying the father should be made responsible. He should be shamed and publicly spoken about and made to marry her. And of course she says all these things without knowing that Eric is the dad. So that brings us to the third question, the dramatic device at the end of Act 2. That's what happens. It's when Eric walks back into the room and it dawns on all the characters. So Sheila obviously has worked it out a little bit quicker than everybody else, but then it dawns on the other characters that Eric is the father. So really the device is the entrance of Eric onto the stage. Okay, so let's move on. We're going to do some recall activities here to try and make sure we can identify key things that happened in Act 1 and Act 2, and you're going to work out something called a pivotal plot point. If you do dance, you might understand that a pivot is where you sort of spin on one foot to turn around. So it just means a complete about face, a complete turn. So here in the plot, that's when things suddenly change. And we're going to look at that today. So there are lots and lots of boxes on the screen here, and what I want you to do is find the 5 that explain the plot in Act 1. And again, it would be easy to just zoom ahead and to do, not put the work in and try and do it yourself, just to look at the answers I'll show you next. I can't police that that's what you're doing. However, it's going to be better for you if you complete the activity, isn't it? Okay, so read through the ones on the board and pick the 5 that you think explain the plot in Act 1. Please pause the video and do that now. Okay, let's see then. So these 5 are the answer. Okay, so check those against your own. If you got that right, that's brilliant. If you got it wrong, just have a think about that. And the most likely thing you'll have done wrong is not been clear what was Act 1 and what was Act 2, I think. However, those are the ones that are important. What you need to do then now is put those in order and write those down. Okay? So I'm just looking. So it starts off with the one on the second row in the middle. We're introduced to the Burling family on the eve of the engagement. Then we go to the top row. Mr. Burling conducts several lengthy monologues. So that's when he just gives a speech. He pontificates, talks about his ideas. Then at the bottom on the left, Edna announces as a visitor, which is in Inspector Goole. Then also on the bottom row, Inspector Goole relieves that a woman's died and questions Mr. Burling. And then also the audience learn for the other box that's left then that Sheila got Eva fired. Okay, so it's that order that you need. So just copy those out in that order, in any format you like really. You could do a fancy thing with boxes and arrows that join up, or you could just do a list. That's up to you. Bullet points is fine. Okay then, so obviously it says on the book, mate, you can't do that. Here we go then. So you've got another load of things on the board here. What you need to do is find the 5 boxes that explain the plot in Act 2. Now, it won't be all of them, okay, because there's 15 there in total. So do exactly the same thing. Pause the video, work out which ones are in Act 2, and then come back and we'll look at whether you got those right or wrong. Okay, so let's see how you did. Okay, so the 5 boxes here are on the board. So, it goes in order. So we start with Sheila and Gerald speaking candidly. Candid, when you're candid with somebody, you're really, really honest. You tell the truth. You're really blunt about things. And we often aren't, are we? We often make excuses or try and phrase things kindly. But here they have a real, proper, serious, this is the truth. What are we going to do? And Sheila returns the ring. It emerges then that Gerald also met Eva but knew her as Daisy Renton, and he tells everyone that he kept her as the mistress. Next, then, on the top row, Mrs. Burling claims not to recognise Eva, but she's forced to reveal how she refused Eva support from her charity. And then at the bottom, Mrs. Burling's quick to lay the blame on the father of the baby and demands he's held accountable. And then also at the bottom, even Mr. Burling is taken aback by his wife's behaviour towards Eva. But Sybil remains unrepentant, so that means she's not sorry and she takes no responsibility. So, again, copy those out. It says cut them out and stick them, so you can obviously do that if you can print, or you can just copy them. So you can do it as little boxes with arrows between them, or you can do it in a linear bullet point form. I don't mind either way. And that is it for our lesson today, and I will see you next lesson. Take care.